Hello friends, Namaskar. Welcome to Dr.RAjeshverma's YouTube channel, and in this particular video I will be talking about forgetting and introductory part of the forgetting. We will be discussing meaning, definition, then certain characteristics and the factors influencing the forgetting. Finally, we will be focusing on the major and important theories of forgetting. Now let us start with the meaning of forgetting. The literary meaning suggests that fails to remember fails to remember anything is the literary meaning of forgetting, whereas the in psychological parlance forgetting means inability to recall stored information into the present state of mind. That means that indicates that we have previously learned something that is stored in a cognitive domain, and from that if he fails to recall that information in the present state of consciousness or the mind, we call it as a forgetting. So now let us define what is forgetting. According to Bhatia, forgetting is the failure of the individual to revive in consciousness an idea or a group of ideas without the help of the original stimuli. If without the help of the original event, situation or stimuli, we fails to recall, revive an idea that has been previously stored in our system, that we call it as a forgetting. So this is a beautiful definition given by Bhatia. Apart from that, Drever also defined the forgetting. Forgetting means failure at any time to recall experience when attempting to do so, or to sorry, to perform an action previously learned. So why I included this Drever's definition here, it is because he has uh, added one additional information in his definition, that is the activity which we have learned previously. When we fails to do that, that is also comes under the domain of forgetting. So if we define forgetting in one line, that means when the fails to recall the information which has been stored in our cognitive domain, and whenever we require need that information, for that time if you are unable to retrieve that information, this means we are facing a process of forgetting. So these are the two definitions of forgetting. Now let us go for the introductory part. Dear friends, the concept of memory and forgetting is incomplete if we fails to remember or fails to mention the name of Hermann Ebbinghaus, the great German psychologist. In 1913, he pioneered the study of forgetting. He created nonsense syllables, that is, for testing his own memory, testing the concept of forgetting. So, what are the nonsense syllables? He created a word that is meaningless, but there is a sequence of word. That means that word must have a consonant, then vowel, and then consonant. Suppose we are to make that nonsense syllable as a X E W, means X is a consonant, E is a vowel, and again W is a consonant. In this way, he has created a list of nonsense syllables and tested upon himself and measured his own memory. Out of the results that came out from this his study, he created a curve which is famously known as the forgetting curve, which is just in front of you. As a student of psychology or a teacher of psychology or a potential teacher or anyone interested to study psychology, he or she must know this curve. This is a very famous, and still it's as relevant as it was created by the Hermann Ebbinghaus. So this is when we remember information, we memorize information. If you try to recall it immediately, almost 100% information, we are successful in recalling that information. As far as after 20 minutes, we could recall only 58%, but after 1 hour, we could be able to recall only 44%. Then this way, if you want to recall that information after 31 days, only we have the will be able to recall only 21%. So this is the famous forgetting curve created by the Hermann Ebbinghaus. So the forgetting graph that previously we have seen, that indicates that forgetting occurs fast within first hour. First hour you will able to recall only 44%. This means 56% information has been washed out of our cognitive domain. This means within the first hour, the forgetting is the fastest. So that is the critical period. First R is the critical period where the forgetting occurs with the fastest rate. This means that when the retained material is not rehearsed or activated frequently, it is likely to be forgotten from our memory system. This means that that information fails to store in the long-term memory. This is the, again, one of the curve uh, which indicates if we fail in the first repetition. This is the learning curve given by the in the gray line you can see given by the Hermann Ebbinghaus, whereas this is the red lines. This indicate that at the if you repeat that information first after the first repetition, this will the forgetting graph, that is forgetting curve. If you go for the second repetition, this will the second that is the forgetting curve. After third repetition and after fourth repetition, this means these graphs which was been scientifically created indicates that to memorize information we must certainly has to go for the maintenance rehearsal or the repetition of the informations. Only in that case we will be able to retain that information for longer period of time and recall that information whenever we need that. So these are the two famously drawn the forgetting curves. Interestingly, forgetting occurs in LCM due to decay of memory traces that are formed in the neural circuits. So why there's a concept that people say, and I too said in my previous videos that once information travels into the or stored into long-term memory, it stays for a lifetime. No, that also from long-term memory also we are able to we cannot recall the information several times due to various reasons. One of the major reasons for that is the decaying of the memory traces, that is the engrams that has been formed in the neural circuits during the rehearsal period. If that engrams or that memory traces get decays, certainly that information will be flown out of the long-term memory. Peterson in 1959 demonstrated that 10% retailed material washes out within the first 18 seconds. Means in the first 18 seconds, almost 10% of material will be go out from your memory. So that's a very important point here. It means traces are highly vulnerable to decay. That memory traces which have been formed, which are the organic changes in neural circuit, can be decayed if that particular information has not been properly, adequately rehearsed. Forgetting also occurs in short-term memory, but here it occurs due to its limited storage capacity and other factors such as the duration. See, very important point here. Forgetting is not limited to the long-term memory. There is forgetting also occurs in the short-term memory, but with different connotations, with different reasons. So let us discuss now the forgetting some more. Forgetting is the phenomena where tracking and identification of engrams becomes almost impossible, consequently failing to bring them back in the consciousness. This is very important statement here, that the engrams or that the you call it as a organic or physical changes that occurred in your uh, neural circuit, or we call it a synaptic consolidation or synaptic synapses. These are the engrams or the you call it the memory traces. If we fails to track them, identify them whenever we required them, if we fails in that activity, that means we won't be able to recall the information in our present state of consciousness. So this is the little bit of introductory part as far as the forgetting is concerned. And dear friends, forgetting has two important or inherent components, that is the lack of availability, and the second one is the lack of accessibility. What is lack of availability? Is it the name itself is just sufficient to explain? Means it means stored information is no more available in our cognitive system. So this is lack of availability. Where lack of accessibility means that information is still available in our cognitive store, but we fails to recall it, or it is not accessible for recalling at present state of mind. So these are the two important inherent component as far as the forgetting concerned. We must memorize them, we must understand them, these concepts, that is lack of availability and lack of accessibility. So now let us discuss some characteristics of forgetting. Forgetting, I told you, occurs both in STM as well as the LTM. In STM, due to limited capacity, limited time duration, displacement and trace decay, while in LTM it is due to interference, trace decay and various other factors. The second characteristic, forgetting is caused due to fading of information, and the information that fades gradually leads to forgetting. This means, whereas forgetting is faster in LTM when compared to the LTM. Oh, sorry, forgetting is faster in short-term memory when we compare it to the long-term memory. Means that information washes out quickly from the STM in context of the LTM. The third characteristic, the lack of adequate attention or focus facilitates forgetting. So this is very important for the as far as the students are concerned. So we repeatedly ask students to pay attention to the teachers or their colleagues that we are discussing when we discuss some academic material. That time, if you fails to pay attention or focus your attention on the particular part, you won't, that information won't be able to travel inside your short-term memory. If there is that information doesn't transfer into short-term memory, certainly there is no chances that information will be remembered by you. So this is a very important point here, that is, we must, when we study something, we must pay our 100% attention to that. If you do that, certainly forgetting will not come near to you, and you will score a good grades or marks in your annual or some term and examinations. Dear friend, the next one is the retrieval failure is one of the major causes of forgetting. Means the information is available in your cognitive domain, cognitive storehouse, but from that it becomes difficult for us to retrieve the information, and failure of that retrieval is the one of the major, or you call it one of the best, or one of the not best, one of the uh, important cause that leads to the forgetting. Forgetting can be motivated. Sometimes there are such incident, situations, or events which we like to forget. That is the incidents or events which are uh, uh, which may disturbs you, which are emotion provoking, and that to be negatively emotion provoking. At that time, we like to forget that event. In such cases, we call it a forgetting can be motivated. Then forgetting can have psychological, biological, and social context. This means we can forget the information in the psychological context, because that if that information or that event or that stimuli is interfering with your emotions, interfering with your psychological well-being, that time that information can be uh, voluntarily thrown out. Then it can be biological as well as social context. Dear friend, forgetting is the function of lack of accessibility and or both, that is availability of information, which are the two important innate components which I discussed earlier. Means it is the function of either lack of accessibility or lack of availability, or both of that. Both of the situation can arise. So these are some characteristics of the forgetting. So what are the causes of forgetting? So we must discuss these things. First one is the psychological amnesia, that is due to encoding and storage failure. If during the encoding stage the information was not properly encoded, in that case you won't be able to retrieve that information. So that comes under the psychological amnesia. If the storage is not proper, you have encoded the information, but you not stored that information, you're not gone for the maintenance rehearsal, you're not gone the elaborate rehearsal, if that information won't be stored, so then in that case we won't be able to recall that information. So first cause of the forgetting is the psychological amnesia. We must avoid that. The second one is the biological amnesia. Biological amnesia means that information is there in your brain, but due to some drug abuse, some major injury, or some degeneration of your neural circuit, we fails to recall a particular information. So that point comes under the scope of the biological amnesia. Third one is the social amnesia. Social means collective amnesia. If there is some collective problem in a society, and the society loves to forget that information, likes to doesn't like to recall that information, so that in stage of point, or we call it the social amnesia. These are the three important causes. So psychological amnesia, biological amnesia, and social amnesia. Dear friend, apart from that, we'll be discussing some more causes, that is trace decay. That means the engrams that has been formed in your neural circuits during the storage or the memory transferring from the short term memory to long term memory. That time there is a biological change in the neural circuits, and that is biological changes are known as the traces. If these traces are not used or not regularly rehearsed, that time they are prone to decay. So that is the fourth major cause, that is decaying of the memory traces. Then comes the interference. This phenomena generally found in the short-term memory, not in the long-term memory. But due to that interference also, there are high chances that we face the phenomena of forgetting. Then comes the delay in rehearsal. You are rehearsing, but you are creating some delay after some specific time has been elapsed. And due to that also, we will likely to forget the information. Then comes the, my dear friends, lack of rehearsal. Either it can be maintenance or elaborate rehearsal. So there is a difference between maintenance rehearsal and elaborate rehearsal. Maintenance rehearsal means repeating that information over and over again, whereas elaborate rehearsal means understanding the meaning of that information and then storing it. So this is the important 2 points here. If you fails to go for the adequate rehearsal, certainly will not be able to recall the information. Then it is a very common characteristics, retrieval failure. Whenever we need information, if it fails to retrieve that, that is comes under the scope of this retrieval failure. Entropy through disuse. Entropy means gradual degradation, gradual deterioration of the information. It's a type of decay, but that entropy can be either organic or it can be psychological. That occurs with only one reason, that is if you fails to disuse that information. Same thing appears happens in various at our homes too. Suppose we keep a item at a home without using for a longer period of time, it start losing its luster, it start losing its that importance and all. So similar the case with your memory. If you do not use that information regularly, certainly it will degrade or it will deteriorate and leads to the forgetting. Then comes the dearth of storage space. This particular characteristics of forgetting pertains to the short-term memory. Long-term memory do not have the problem of storage space as far as the space is concerned. But in short-term memory, the space is limited, and if that due to that too, the information also doesn't get stored properly, and we are most likely to forget the information. Then comes the motivation to forget. So this is the thing which I discussed earlier. Earlier, this is the psychological amnesia that comes under that psychological amnesia, dear friends. Sometimes there are certain events, there are certain parts in our life, situations or the challenges that occurs in our life, which we do not like to recall them, we do like to retrieve them. So for that reason, we are motivated ourselves to forget that information. This is also one of the causes of forgetting. Then comes the lack of consolidation, that is synaptic consolidation, that occurs during the sleeping process or relaxation time. So if that also doesn't occurs properly or doesn't adequately, that time also we are likely to forget the information. Then comes the, this is a very important point, lack of physical activity and poor diet. If we fails to take proper nutritious diet or we fails to do some physical activity, certainly our brain doesn't get the adequate nutrition as well as the blood supply, and in that way we are more likely to forget the information or forget the event related uh, knowledge. So, and the last causes of forgetting is the, my dear friends, and not the last one more I'll discuss with you, aging. Due to aging also, I told you or I discussed in very previous my videos, where are during the aging process are the frontal lobe and hippocampus gets deteriorated, and due to that we fails to retrieve the information. So this means aging also facilitates the forgetting. And the final characteristics, the nature of material learnt. So these are very important characteristics of forgetting. Why? The material which we learnt, if that material is not new, not of our interest, or not attractive, we likely to forget that information very rapidly. So that nature of the material too is a very important uh, component that leads to the forgetting. So these were the 15 causes of forgetting. Finally, we'll be discussing the important theories of forgetting. First one is the interference theory. The theory suggests that information causes interference in retrieval and recall of other information. Dear friend, this is a very important point here. Interference theory. So interference is of two types, that is proactive and retroactive interference. So we'll be discussing these both too. So one point I'll make it here is students are likely to more often confuse between the proactive and retroactive interference. I'll give a trick to remember that. So what is the proactive interference? When previously learned information causes disturbance in retrieval of newer information. So proactive, as far as the students who know Hindi, they are concerned, for that I'll give one trick. Proactive means पहले वाला active. Pro means पहले, means that पहले वाली information active means the information that has been learned previously is creating interference in the recalling of the information which has been learned earlier. For example, take it as example of a well, that example I'll share with the next type of. Proactive means that information which you learned previously, and that information is interfering with the recall of the information that learned by you is later. So that is the proactive interference. When you go to the retroactive interference, when the newer information interferes with the retrieval of previously learned information. For that, there is one beautiful example. When we move in an elevator, or when we suddenly we call it as a lift, in that if you enter in the lift, there is a concept LIFO, last in first out. The individual who has entered in the elevator, the last one to enter in the elevator, he has to move out first. So that is type of retroactive interference, when the newer information interferes with the retrieval of previously learned information. So to remember these, the differentiate between the proactive and retroactive. For the English medium students, you remember that lift phenomena or the elevator phenomena. LIFO phenomena, last in first out, means the individual who has entered the last has to come out first. So this means he is or she is interfering with the other, with the individuals who has entered the elevator previous to him or her, which is not or she is not allowing them. He or she has to come out first. So similar is the case with the retroactive interference, when newer information interferes with the retrieval or recall of previous learned information. So this is the two important, retroactive and proactive. And the second important theory as far as the forgetting is concerned is the trace decay theory. That is, either you use it or lose it. So this is the punchline of the trace decay theory. This theory suggests that long-term memory is formed due to occurrence of physical or organic changes in the brain. They are known as the memory traces. The loss of these traces due to several factors such as the disuse, passage of time, etc. leads to forgetting. So these are the here we discussed two theories. I'll take you to the previous slide. That is the interference theory. Dear friends, these interference theories mainly concerned with the short-term memory, and it has two types: proactive and retroactive. I told you to how to use it, and you have to differentiate between these proactive and retroactive. The second theory, trace decay theory, is mainly concerned with the long-term memory, but it also occurs applicable in the short-term memory too. That is, use it or lose it. So, my dear friends, these are my references. We have discussed the meaning of the forgetting, then meaning in context of psychology, then the introductory part, two definitions given by the Bhatia and Drever. Then we came to the characteristics of forgetting, then the causes of forgetting, and finally two important theories of forgetting, that is interference theory and trace decay theory. These my references. You can cross check them, or you can study, you can focus on that. And dear friends, the next discussion will be, or next video will be, factors leading to the forgetting. So by that time, if you love this video, like this video, share with your friends or with the individual who love to study psychology, or the potential teachers. If you there is some point in my speaking ability or some information or some my material, if you feel that this is not something there is wrong with that or something inappropriate, kindly share with me. Either you can write in my comment box, or you can email me at vermasujit@yahoo.com. I love to appreciate your comments, whether they are appreciative or they are critical one. Thanks, dear friends, watching for this video.